and welcome to this week's News Desk with me, Chris Stafford, alongside Nancy Gillen. I'm in Middleburg, Virginia, and Nancy, you're in North London. You're not a northern girl, are you?
No, I'm not. I did live in Leeds for 4 years, but I am southern.
I thought so, but you're in North London, right?
Yes, I live in North London, yeah.
And here we are recording on June 15th, 2022. This is Season 4, Episode 22. And, well, this week, I know I'm going to keep you happy because you've got a summer of football, but we've got, I don't know, about half a dozen football stories to start this week, Nancy. I want to begin with the two US players who have been making the news this week, big time, but for very different reasons. So let's start with OL Reign acquiring Tobin Heath. As we record, this has been reported. I checked on the OL Reign website a few moments ago. They still have not confirmed it, but a number of sources have confirmed that OL Reign have acquired the rights from Racing Louisville for Tobin Heath.
Yeah, so quite a big move there. And I think Tobin Heath was at Arsenal last season and had quite an injury-plagued time there and was released early from her contract to go back to the US and recover from injury. And then, yeah, a lot of speculation about where she was going. And I think we both thought she was off to the West Coast.
For sure.
Right. Is Seattle still West Coast?
Seattle and Portland are north. Yeah, they are Oregon and Washington State.
We were thinking more like California.
We were thinking not too far from Angel City Football Club, right? Where
exactly.
Christen Press was. So a little bit surprising that she went up there. It's not too far. It's still in the same time zone, so there's that consolation for them. And she'll be playing alongside her former Arsenal teammate, Kim Little, who was signed, right? I understand she's got a visa now, but she's not yet on the roster because I was on their website a moment ago, as I said, to see if they finally announced Tobin's acquisition. So that will be fun for them to be alongside each other again. And, of course, Tobin's old teammates, Rose Lavelle and Megan Rapinoe, I mean, that's a star-studded cast they've got and their forward lineup anyway, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a pretty good team. And yeah, well, the Kim Little thing's interesting. She's there over the summer while everyone else is playing at the Euros, basically, because Scotland didn't qualify. But yeah, that's like a big boost to their midfield. And like you said, the names that they're reeling off there are pretty good. But I was looking at the NWSL table because they're sixth at the moment. So I suppose they'd be hoping to do kind of better than that, considering the names they've had. So I suppose acquisitions like Heath and Kim Little will really help there. Yeah,
they should really boost the team, shouldn't they? Because it is surprising that they are down where they are, although Megan's only come off the bench, I think, a couple of times this season, Megan Rapinoe. But yeah, it is a bit surprising they're down where they are, but this should boost their team considerably and see what they can do for the rest of the season. But I'm not sure when Tobin, if she's fully fit yet, when she'll actually be called upon, because she was recovering from a hamstring injury, wasn't she? Well, this is why she was released early from her contract with Arsenal. So I'm not sure on her level of fitness. Do you know anything more than I don't know?
I don't know. And yeah, like you said, I think it's as well at Arsenal, she had quite a few injuries. It wasn't just one. It was, or like, you know, whether it was flaring back up or whatever, it's quite a lot. So I think injuries is definitely something that's a bit of an issue for her. So hopefully at her new club, she can overcome that. They can help her to overcome that.
Yeah. Well, meanwhile, her former USWNT teammate and friend, Christen Press, sustained a season-ending injury. She tore her ACL, her right ACL, which actually is going to impede her driving too, which doesn't help. But that was a major, where we talked about it before we started recording here this week, Nancy. And that, when I've been watching Chris play this season, since she had a break, came back, she's been playing so well and she's been scoring. She just scored a goal and she'd had one assist, I think, in that game. And then in the second half, she did her ACL. So heartbreaking for her when she's been playing so well.
Yeah, it really is. And yeah, a lot of ACL injuries this season, towards the latter end of the season. I was thinking actually at the start of the season that we're hearing less hearing less of ACL injuries in women's football, but yeah, this end of season has proven me wrong because Christen Press is another of quite a few players to announce that ACL injury, and like you said, was having a really good season back in the States after a bit of time away from football. So yeah, again, we said the exact same thing with Kat Mercario as well last week. I suppose the only kind of positive here is the timing of it allows her to come back for the World Cup next year if she is going to be in contention for the squad. But I know that's been another source of debate over in the US, hasn't it?
Yes. Yeah, it really has. There's been a little bit of controversy. Of course, the CONCACAF roster was named this week, along with a couple of friendlies that the US are playing against Colombia this month, actually. And then next month, they've got those 3 CONCACAF games against Haiti, Jamaica, and Mexico. So the controversy mainly around the roster, I have to say, which the social media has been absorbing, is the absence of Christen Press, which was announced already before that injury. So there's some speculation as to why. It's not so much what's been happening on the pitch as what's been happening off the pitch, and some form of retaliation. But I think this is hearsay speculation. People are looking for a reason why the on form and currently, from what we've seen of her this season, Christen Press deserved a place back on the team. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think I agree with that when you look at the other players that have been called up as well, like Megan Rapinoe, for instance, like you said, has only kind of come off the bench a few times. And it's not really like it's been like a full changing of the guard in that a lot of the older players have gone and it's all younger players, because there's still quite a lot of that old guard involved in the squad. Yes. So yeah, to have one of a member of that old guard who is playing well to not be considered is pretty strange for me. I don't really know what's gone on there, but it's a shame now that she's not really going to have like an opportunity to prove that non-selection wrong, because for the next kind of 9 months she's going to be focusing on recovering from injury.
Yes, she is. Well, it's going to take 6 to 9 months, isn't it, to get back fully from an ACL tear, which is a big stretch of time at her age. She's north of 30 now, so it makes it more difficult for her to come back, and more difficult to get back on a roster which is really spoilt for choice, don't you think? I mean, injuries aside, we really have tremendous depth in the US team now, and a lot of young talent. We've talked about this before, Nancy. I mean, tremendous amount of young, really impressive talent that's coming up and quite rightly earned their place on the squad.
Yeah, definitely. For me, it is definitely great to see the younger players come through, because I think as great as the US have been, I do think there has been that feeling that maybe sometimes there hasn't been the chance for younger players to come through. So now to see a lot of them getting their opportunities is great. And I want to see some matchups with some of the teams over in Europe with this US team now. I want to know where we stand. So I suppose that will definitely happen at the World Cup next year. So yeah, looking forward to it. Yeah,
exactly. And see who comes back. There's some speculation that Tobin, for example, won't find a place on the national squad again. That she's peaked in terms of her international career. But you would have thought Megan likewise would have done, but Christen coming back then, and Alex Morgan too. We've seen her perform quite consistently too. So yeah, it's an interesting time in the sport, don't you think?
Yeah, it really is. It's going to be very interesting to see how that transition between the old lot and the younger players kind of happens, and who's still around come this time next year. Yeah. And good to see Alex Morgan. Well, we talked about Christen Press looking really, really good. I thought Alex Morgan, so far from what I've seen her this season, is really looking good, really sharp, and she's scoring. Yeah, so did she score a hat-trick the other day?
Yes.
Yes, she did, yeah.
Yeah, yes, it was, yeah. Yeah, pretty sure. It was either 2 goals or 3. I think definitely.
Yeah, she is.
She had a good game anyway.
Yeah, it's been noticed over here that she is scoring for sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll keep an eye on that. Now, talking about teams being named, international squads being named, you've got an international roster named. Your England team has been named for the Euros 22, UEFA Euros that are happening very shortly, next month, right? They start. But I noticed you'd only got, was it one or two Arsenal players? What happened? Yeah, a couple of Arsenal players. What happened to your girls?
I think there's 4, isn't there?
Leah
Williamson,
1, 2, 3. We've got
Speed, and then Lotte Wubben-Moy as well.
Yeah, and
and Leah.
Nikita Paris, Beth
Mead, Leah Williamson, and Lotte Wubben-Moy.
Yeah, 4. I beg your pardon. I didn't count.
That's okay.
Maybe I was just looking at the mid or the forwards. There you go. So. What are your thoughts on the squad then? Obviously, you'll be happy you've got so many on the squad, but what are your thoughts on the rest of the team?
Yeah, generally, I think it's a really good squad. I think so. Serena Wiegman, the manager, had named a 28-player provisional squad last month, and then she just cut it down by 5 players. So a lot of it isn't new because we knew the majority of the squad, and people were kind of guessing which 5 players were going to be dropped. I think like the big headline is probably that Steph Houghton, the former captain, who's been like a mainstay in the England defence, wasn't picked. But for me, I wasn't surprised, and I was predicting that she wasn't going to be, just because she's been injured for the whole season, hasn't actually played a match, and has literally just kind of just recovered from injury, like now, to make the camp that's currently ongoing. So I think people were kind of arguing she should be bought for experience, but personally, I think that's almost, you're depriving like a player who could actually play minutes and make a difference for experience. And if she can come along in like a non-playing role or something like that, which I'm sure she can, seeing as the tournament's in England, then that makes sense to me. So yeah, that was the only real point of debate, but it went the way that I was wanting and expecting. So yeah, the squad as a whole, I'm very happy with it. I think it's in all areas pretty strong. Just remains to be seen whether it's going to be a Euros winning squad or not. But I think it definitely gives us every chance of come end of July, maybe being European champions.
We shall see. I know we'll get blow-by-blow account from you. All right. We're going to move on to a story coming out of Spain. And we like this when we read a quality stories. Nancy, what have you got for us there?
Yeah, so good news out of Spain, following suit in a lot of other countries as well in recent months and years. But the Spanish women's national team are going to receive the same bonuses as their male counterparts. So this is all part of a new 5-year deal with the Spanish Football Federation. So the players will also receive money from sponsorship arrangements and income from image rights, and their team working conditions will also be improved. So yeah, this is kind of like a big, I think women's football in Spain is moving at an absolute rapid pace, because it wasn't long ago that the Spanish national team wasn't being treated very well. The domestic league was striking because they couldn't agree on a contract or whatever. They wanted professional sides, like more money. And now we're getting to the stage where they're sharing bonuses with the men's team, which is very significant. Maybe part of it is down to the success on the pitch. So obviously now you've got Barcelona in Spain, who are kind of like leading the way for women's football, and the Spanish national team are one of the favourites at the Euros. You've got players like Alexia Putellas, who's part of the Spanish team, who's probably one of the most famous women's footballers around at the moment. So it's kind of good to see that the Football Federation are like reflecting that success on the pitch with ensuring that the women's side has equality with the men's side. So yeah, good news from Spain there.
Yeah, and you answered my question about Spain. I considered they probably would be one of the favourites for the Euros. So let's look at the top 3 favourites then, since we're talking about
so hard. In my opinion, there are, I think, 7 teams that could win it, and it wouldn't be a surprise.
Wow.
So for me, it's, well, obviously host England, defending champions, the Netherlands, France, Germany, like the classic powerhouses, Sweden, who got the silver medal at the Olympics, Norway, who have got like a really, really stacked team, and then Spain. It's so hard to look at that and pick even 3 favourites. I think I'd probably go with Sweden, just because they've been in really good form and have had really good experience at an international tournament last year at the Olympics. England as hosts. And then maybe Spain, but then Spain are missing a lot of the players that the Barcelona team have. It's not quite the same team. But yeah, it's really hard. I think Norway as well. Norway are actually a really good shout. So could be anyone.
Yeah, there's a few choices there. Well, we'll see as the competition unfolds. And how much of this will you be able to see in person?
I'm hoping to go to as many games as possible. We're going to the first game at Old Trafford, the first England game as a fan, but then have applied for accreditation for a lot of the rest of them. So yeah, hopefully get that approved and just go into as many as I possibly can, basically.
Right. So you'll only be thinking football then for the whole of July?
Yeah, for the whole month. Yeah, basically.
And we want to change gear completely now because there's been an update on the US basketball star Brittney Griner, who's been held in Russia since February on accusations of drug smuggling. And she faced a Russian court again this week, and they are detaining her through at least July 2nd. Now, this has all been regarded by the US State Department as a wrongful detention. She has been wrongfully detained. The government have got involved, but of course, what the news cycle here now we're talking more about her. What has been the mood of this, Nancy, and I don't know how much you followed this, is that if this had been an NBA player, it would have caused so much more of a ruckus here than it has done being a WNBA player. But now, as I said, the State Department have got involved, and she will be detained but until at least July 2nd, they're saying. So I think what we're hoping, or certainly the WNBA and her family, her wife and her family are hoping that she will be part of a deal, a swap with Russia, with a Russian detainee here, that she will be part of that to secure her release. But who knows? That's speculation, but that's what they're hoping. How much of this has caught the attention over in the UK, Nancy, particularly in the basketball world? It definitely is on the. I think everyone is aware of it. It is being reported in the news. Like the latest update is definitely on BBC Sport. It was on BBC Sport this morning. So it's definitely being reported. I think probably just because basketball is less of a popular sport here, it's not as kind of like, it's not massive news, but it's still kind of broken through the barrier, the fact that it isn't a big sport here for people to be aware of it. Right.
So yeah, people know, what's happened, and I think everyone's hoping that she comes home safely. I hope they can continue to keep working to achieve that.
Yeah, because there are obviously different cultural viewpoints here as well between the US and Russia in terms of her being black. She's African American, and she's part of the LGBTQI community as well. So there's certain biases there. I think we're having to deal with. I think it would be fair to say.
Yeah, definitely. I think she's in a very difficult position for a lot of factors, and yeah, it's just not a good situation to be in at all.
No. Well, we'll keep you posted as we hear it here. And now we're going to move right along to the summer sport that we talked a lot about on the last 2 shows, of course, being tennis, with the Grand Slams in full swing now. We're getting closer to Wimbledon and taking place, of course, in SW19. And there's also Eastbourne International coming up starting next week, which is a nice warm-up on grass for the girls. So what news have you got there? And I know we've had some controversial news when it comes to tennis recently, and we made headlines last week, I think, or the week before, from Roland Garros, but no scandals, hopefully. But what have you got, Nancy?
Yeah, so this is, kind of just an update on that, with the US Open, on the Russian and Belarusian tennis players, whether they're allowed to play at the US Open. And yeah, the US Open have gone down the same track as the French Open rather than Wimbledon. So Russian and Belarusian tennis players are allowed to compete as long as it's under a neutral flag with like no reference to their nationality or anything like that. So yeah, this is essentially in contrast to Wimbledon, who banned Russian and Belarusian tennis players and then had their ranking points stripped by the WTA and ATP. So when players compete at Wimbledon this summer, they won't be able to get ranking points. But yeah, that won't be an issue with the US Open. They've said they're going to allow all eligible players, regardless of nationality, to compete at the tournament. At the same time, condemning the unprovoked and unjust invasion of Ukraine by Russia. So yeah, they've kind of gone with what the rest of the tennis world has gone, and Wimbledon's kind of in isolation. But you do have to wonder how much maybe the US Open organisers had looked at what had happened to Wimbledon and the kind of chaos it's caused, and maybe just decided to play it safe, I suppose. I don't know. Only the people that organise it would know that. But so that's an interesting one. So it looks like Russian and Belarusian players at the moment, Wimbledon is the only Grand Slam they're going to be missing out on.
Yeah, and let's remind everybody that we've got two top 20 players there in WTA rankings, Anya Sabalenka and Victoria Azarenka, as well as the Russian Daria Kazatskina. Kazakina. Did I get that right, Nancy?
Kazakina, yeah.
Thank you. So, there's top players here that are missing out in that upcoming tournament here or at Wimbledon. But there's another player switching to Wimbledon now that is making the news, and that's Serena Williams, because she's going to make a return to Eastbourne and Wimbledon.
Yeah, so after about a year away from the court, she has announced that she is coming back. I think there was a bit of uncertainty whether she would come back. She's lost her coach to Simona Halep. So yeah, I think people kind of maybe just assumed that she has kind of like quietly retired, but no, she announced it was yesterday, I think, on Instagram that she was going to be returning for Wimbledon, and then it was later announced that she's going to be playing doubles with Ons Jabeur at Eastbourne. So yeah, there's been kind of no clarification with Wimbledon whether it's going to be singles or doubles, but the fact that she's just playing doubles at Eastbourne suggests maybe it's also just doubles at Wimbledon rather than singles. So yeah, we're going to have to wait and see with that one. I think if she's just playing doubles, I don't know what that means for the future, if that's what she's going to be doing for a bit and then retire, or if that's just kind of like the way of warming up to get back into singles. So we'll have to see. But quite an interesting announcement. Yeah. And no better place to start off than Eastbourne, of course, at Devonshire Park. It's beautiful. Have you ever been down there to watch the tennis, Nancy? I haven't, no. I really do want to go. It does look pretty cool.
Jump on the train. It's an easy ride down to Eastbourne, and you can watch a lot of the players, preparing for Wimbledon on grass, and watch them on the practice courts. That's a lot of fun to do, just to go out and watch them on the practice courts. So yeah, you'll get an idea who's on form before they get to London. So keep us posted, won't you? What you hear about that?
Yeah,
if you go down there, we expect.
Yeah, we'll do.
Yeah, and some more news to come. Maybe not next week, but the following week on the show. Hopefully you'll have been down. All right, we've got one more story to end this week, and that's following up from the ice skating story you brought us last week on the change of the age limit.
Yeah, so this is, so we spoke about it last week, but the International Skating Union decided to increase the discipline's minimum age from 15 to 17, and that was off the back of the Kamila Valieva saga at the Beijing Winter Olympics, where she was essentially in this big doping scandal, and she was only 15 and, was obviously not being looked after and was obviously being massively affected by it. So I think after that, there was a bit of an uproar that a 15-year-old had been put in that situation. And the minimum age limit was rose to 17. But there's been criticism from Tara Lipinski, who is a former ice skater herself, figure skater. And she is a Winter Olympic gold medalist from Nagano in 1998 and was also a world champion in 1997. So she was just 14 when she was world champion and then won that Olympic gold medal when she was 15. So very young herself. So it's really interesting. She's criticised the age limit. She says that it denies athletes a performance on the biggest stage and then ultimately doesn't make a difference in stopping abuse. The athletes will still be skating under a broken system. You just won't see them until they're 17. But it's very interesting that she in particular has made this criticism because she retired in 1998, so when she was 15 after the gold medal. And people that have argued for an age limit in figure skating has kind of used her as a case study, like saying that she was burnt out, there was too much pressure placed on her as a teenage athlete. But Lipinski's kind of said that's not true. And it was more that, she retired at 15, but then toured when she was in her 20s. So she did kind of keep going and then retired to move on with life outside of skating. I think the fact that she's been used as kind of this example of why the age limit should be raised, but then she's come out and criticised the raising of the age limit, I think is quite interesting. And I think her points seem valid. Like, obviously, I don't know the ins and outs of figure skating and what goes on behind closed doors, but I can understand why she's concerned that raising the age limit doesn't actually fix the root of the problem. No. It just kind of artificially fixes it.
Yes.
So I think interesting to see how this situation plays out, if there's any more criticism. But for now, as we know, the age limit is going to gradually rise over the next few years.
Yeah. As you say, just because it's taken off the stage, if you will, it doesn't mean to say we're, just because we're not seeing it because they're not on stage, so to speak, they will be still skating, and it doesn't fix the system itself. So, we'll watch that, see how that unfolds. And I think that's about it, Nancy. What else? Have you got anything else this week?
No, I think that's more or less it, really. Just, it's quite a relatively quiet period at the moment. I think we've said this. It's like the quiet before the storm, isn't it? Before Wimbledon and the Euros, and it all kind of kicks off again. Yeah,
it certainly does. Now, how about your running career? How's that going?
I mean, it's still going, which is good. So I'm still out and about and running. I don't really have an event to be running for at the moment, but just doing it for fun, which is nice. So still going with it.
Good for you. You're keeping fitter than me then at the moment.
Well, you have an injury though, so that's not your fault. I won't blame you for that.
Good. Yeah, a little calf tear cropped up in the last couple of weeks, which has slowed me down. But I'm hoping to get back on the bike this week and see how it feels. But so I sympathise with the athletes, the pro athletes that do get just knocked sideways, like Christen Press. I really feel for her. I know she won't be listening to this, but we're thinking about you and really feel for you being knocked out when you're, playing so well and things are going really, really well. And then, boom, you're sidelined. But, this too shall pass. And you just have to stay strong mentally, right? And do the due diligence with the rehab and give it the time that it needs, right? That's the biggest message, isn't it? Catch it early. Treat it, rehab it, be patient, and you will come back. Come back even stronger, as the song goes, right?
Yeah, that's very wise words. It is true. You've got to give it adequate time to recover. Otherwise, you don't want to get back on the pitch and do it again. So, just patience, really. Patience. And you're back on the football pitch too. You're enjoying some soccer, some football over there? Yeah, just playing in a little team with my friends. So that's really fun as well. So got a lot going on at the moment.
Good for you. All right, Nancy. Well, thanks for the roundup as usual. We'll be back at the same time, same place next week with more news from around the world of women's sports. In the meanwhile, you can catch up with Nancy on social media at...
I'm at Nancy_Gillen, and that's on Twitter, and my Instagram is Nancy_Gillen_sports. And then, everything I write is on Give Me Sport Women, which is at Give Me Sport W. All
right. And we're, of course, at Wisp Sports and at wispsports.com. So until next week, thank you from Nancy and I for tuning in, and we'll catch you next week with more news from around the world of women's sports. Goodbye for now.